Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi à vous tous. Pour la 12e journée de suite, il n'y a aucun nouveau cas de COVID-19 à signaler au Nouveau-Brunswick aujourd'hui. Seuls 4 des 118 cas confirmés jusqu'à présent dans la province demeurent actifs et il n'y reste aucune personne à l'hôpital. This is our 12th day with no new cases of COVID-19 to report in New Brunswick. And of the 118 cases to date, we continue to have 4 active cases, and we have nobody in the hospital at this time. So this is good news, and it's an achievement that we can all be proud of. But I get the sense that there are many people out there asking, isn't this enough? After 7 weeks in lockdown and almost 2 weeks with no new cases, some of you are asking, why does this have to go on? Why can't we get our hair cut? Why can't we go to the mall? And why can't we hang out with our friends? When will my elective surgery be rescheduled? When will life return to normal? Pourquoi ne pouvons pas nous aller chez la coiffeuse ou chez le barbier? Pourquoi ne pouvons-nous pas aller au centre commercial? Pourquoi ne pouvons-nous pas aller rencontrer nos amis? Quand pourrais-je subir mon intervention chirurgicale non urgente? Quand la vie reprendra-t-elle son cours normal? Je vous reprendrai en disant que nous faisons progressivement la transition vers la normalité. The answer is that life will return to a different version of normal, and we will learn to live with this virus until an effective vaccine or some other treatment is available. Governments, businesses, entrepreneurs will adapt, innovate, and find the best tools to reduce the risk of transmission of the disease, and we will work with them every step of the way. New Brunswick led in the initial response, and we will lead in recovery. However, we will take the time, whatever time it takes, to make sure we get this right. That's why we're moving cautiously into this new version of normal, because we're not done with this virus, and this virus is not done with us. As long as it remains out there globally, as long as it remains outside our borders, we have to remain vigilant. We will have more COVID-19 cases. We will have more outbreaks, but we are now ready more than ever to tackle such outbreaks and manage this disease. Our doctors, nurses, paramedics, and other valued healthcare workers are now more prepared for the next wave of the pandemic. The time that we have been given to do this preparation has been very valuable. Our healthcare system is now better positioned so that our hospitals and other healthcare institutions can continue to function and provide care to those who need it most. Les médecins, les infirmières, les travailleurs paramédicaux et autres précieux travailleurs de la santé doivent être prêts à surmonter la prochaine vague de la pandémie. Et elle s'en vient. Notre système de soins de santé doit se préparer aux nouvelles éclosions de la maladie afin que nos hôpitaux et autres établissements de soins de santé puissent continuer à fonctionner et à prendre soin de ceux qui ont le plus besoin. Et le temps qu'on avait été donné, c'était vraiment important pour avoir le temps de se préparer comme il faut. We will all need time to adjust to normality, a version of normality that won't quite feel normal. We do have to get used to people wearing masks when they go to shop, and that has to be seeming as normal and it has to be seen as normal to be keeping their distance from one another when they meet on the street. We will use the time that has been given to us in the coming weeks to get ready, work with citizens and business owners to transform our province, and that is the key word. This is a transformative process. We have to make sure that we have the protections in place to open up and get back on track. Later today, officials will be meeting with the leaders of New Brunswick's business community to discuss our recovery plan. And we'll be looking for fresh thinking and innovative ideas to get this province moving again, safely. Plus tard, aujourd'hui, des représentants du gouvernement rencontrant des chefs de file du milieu des affaires du Nouveau-Brunswick pour discuter de notre plan de rétablissement. Nous serons à la recherche d'idées nouvelles et novatrices pour remettre la province en marche. And I'm sure we will hear some creative suggestions that will enable businesses to bring back their workers while keeping everyone healthy and safe. We will look and feel different when it returns, and we all need time to adjust to that. And I feel that with our adaptability and our resilience, that will be possible. Shop owners will have to work out how to manage the flow of customers so that shoppers and employees can maintain physical distance. Others may decide that shoppers and staff alike will be required to wear community face masks. We will all need time to obtain a community face mask, learn how to use it properly, and become accustomed to wearing it in public. And those whose work requires them to be very close to their customers, such as barbers and hairstylists, have to figure out a way to do their work safely. And this all takes time. I want New Brunswick businesses to take the time necessary to ensure that everyone stays healthy. I want us to find ways for as many organizations and businesses to get back to doing what they love. Other jurisdictions have learned a painful lesson about the cost of rushing back to normalcy, and I want us to learn from that experience. Je demande aux entreprises du Nouveau-Brunswick de prendre le temps qu'il faut pour assurer la sécurité de tous. D'autres administrations ont appris une dure leçon sur le prix à payer pour un retour précipité à la normale. Je veux que nous tirions des leçons de leurs expériences. Some Canadian provinces and U.S. states are now making choices on when and how to resume services to get students back to school and generally restart their economies. And I don't pretend to pass any judgment on any of the choices that they're making, because this is not a race. There is no prize for being the first at getting everything reopened. Success is about reopening things at the right time and doing it very safely. We will make sure we leverage innovation and creativity to build back better wherever we can to contain future outbreaks. Nous ne sommes pas dans une course. Il n'y a pas de prix à gagner pour la première administration à reprendre toutes ses activités. Les administrations qui ne prennent pas le temps de bien faire les choses pourraient devoir en payer le prix. Please be assured that throughout this process, your safety will always be my first priority. And I know that New Brunswick will have more COVID-19 cases, and we will deal with that as it comes. We have been very lucky so far, but we have also made our own luck. By staying at home, in your own home as much as you can, you're reducing the opportunity for the COVID-19 virus to take a deeper hold in our province. We are a close-knit province. We take care of each other, and I'm proud of that. When you go out, maintain 2 meters of physical distance from others. Wear community face masks when physical distancing is not possible. Keep yourself safe and keep others safe. Washing your hands regularly and thoroughly remains crucial to everyone's safety, and you must avoid touching your face. We all need to maintain these new habits as we move to the new version of normal, and it won't always be easy, but I promise you that it will be worth it. Thank you very much. Merci.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin my announcements today, as Minister of Labour, I would like to recognize that the National Day of Mourning took place on Tuesday earlier this week. A time when we reflect on the losses that our families, co-workers, businesses, individuals have all experienced who have been affected by workplace accidents. In particular today, we are thinking of the women and men in uniform who serve as members of the Canadian Armed Forces in light of the tragic situation off the coast of Greece. We honor all workers by committing to make every workplace safe and healthy for all New Brunswickers, and that rings true today with the announcements I'm making. As we place more and more workers on the front lines, we need to ensure that our workplaces are safe. Today, I would like to announce that the job protections are now in place, retroactive to March 12th. Job protection is available under the following situations. 1, when an employee is under medical investigation, supervision, or treatment related to COVID-19. When an employee is acting in accordance with the order of the Public Health Act related to COVID-19. For example, contact tracing by public health could result in an order to stay home for 14 days. 3, when an employee is subject to a controlled measure, which may include self-isolation as the result of information or directions related to COVID-19 issued by medical health officer of health, a medical practitioner, a nurse practitioner or nurse, telecare, the government of New Brunswick, the government of Canada, or the council of a local government. 4, when there is a risk that an employee may expose other individuals in the workplace to COVID-19. 5, when an employee provides care or support to a family member due to a matter related to COVID-19 or school or daycare closures. 6, when an employee is directly affected by travel restrictions related to COVID-19 and therefore cannot reasonably be expected to travel back to New Brunswick. Employees must request this emergency leave in writing to their employers as soon as possible. The request must include the reasons for the leave, the anticipated start date, and the duration of the leave. Employers are not required to pay the employee while they are on COVID-19 leave, as the emergency leave is unpaid leave. More details are available at gnb.ca/PETL. That's gnb.ca/PETL. We want to minimize the pressures on workers and protect their jobs during this pandemic. This is another measure that we are taking to ensure the health and safety of workers and workplaces. Now, with respect to our Working New Brunswick offices, when we entered a state of emergency several weeks ago, government discontinued all non-critical services. This included our regional Working New Brunswick offices. As a province, we have done a good job in working together to flatten the curve, and the next phase is just as important. If we rush, all our efforts we've made so far will be for nothing. While we move into the recovery phase of COVID-19, we are strategically but cautiously identifying services that are essential to getting our economy back on track. We know that we have an environment where new businesses and New Brunswickers can return to a stage of normal and begin to thrive once again, and we need to re-energize our economy. Our Working New Brunswick team is a valuable piece of that puzzle in our province. To the province, to employers, to job seekers, to communities and regions. I am happy to say that Working New Brunswick services are now once again available to any New Brunswicker employee or job seeker looking for support. And while physical offices are not currently open, staff are now available to provide services over the phone. More options will be available in the very near future, including virtual Working New Brunswick services to help connect employers and job seekers. The changes to Working New Brunswick that we made last fall to our services to make them more accessible, more flexible, was done exactly for moments like this. What I said last fall was that what works in St. George might not be what works in Shippagan. And what works in Shippagan today might not be what works in Shippagan 2 years from now. And now we know, with a crisis like this, what works in January might not be what works in April. And that's why we need this kind of flexibility. Any New Brunswick employer, regardless of the size, that has human resource challenges, including recruitment, retention, and training, can reach out to Working New Brunswick for support through a workforce consultant. Any New Brunswicker looking for career or training opportunities can connect with a working NB employment counselor. Employment counselors are now available to help you identify your career goals and needs and can connect you to the labor market through training and employment interventions to help achieve those goals. Staff will be working with municipalities, economic development agencies, and companies to help address the community challenges. And as Dr. Russell said a few minutes ago, myself and Minister Wilson will be meeting with the business community later this afternoon. Our working NB staff have established 5 industry committees in priority sectors: fishing and agriculture, tourism, information and communication technology, and forestry. The committees are assisting with the unique labor and management challenges that these industries are facing due to the COVID-19 climate. To say all this, we are ready and we're eager to provide flexible support to eliminate barriers to help you achieve your goals. And you can contact Working New Brunswick, and you can do that online at gnb.ca/Working New Brunswick. I encourage job seekers to keep checking nbjobs.ca as postings are updated regularly. In conclusion, I'd like to remind all New Brunswickers that moving to the recovery stage does not mean that the threat of COVID-19 is gone. If we begin seeing a spike in cases, more restrictions will have to be put back in place. But our province is facing a unique opportunity. If we're agile, if we're nimble, and we work together, and we think outside the box, this province economically can be stronger than ever before. Thank you.
Bonjour, good afternoon. Our hearts and thoughts are with the crew of HMCS Fredericton, as well as their family members and friends. As the search continues for the Canadian military helicopter that disappeared during NATO training exercises on Wednesday. As the ship is named after a name for New Brunswick's capital, many of us feel a close connection with this ship and those who serve aboard her. We share their grief and extend our sympathies on behalf of all New Brunswickers. Today, we have achieved 12 days without a new case of COVID-19. À chaque jour qui passe sans nouveau cas, le désir de retrouver une vie normale augmente. Ça se comprend très bien. Because we are doing well at this point, it is easy to believe that New Brunswick is in the clear, that we no longer have to worry about this virus, but that simply is not the case. We continue to be surrounded by COVID-19, and because of that, we remain at risk, and every step we take towards normalcy is a calculated risk, but a risk nonetheless. C'est pourquoi nous devrons agir lentement et rouvrir notre province de façon progressive. En pendant que nous travaillons là-dessus, notre gouvernement continuera à prendre les mesures nécessaires pour protéger les gens de cette province. Our goal from the beginning has been to keep New Brunswickers healthy and safe. This is a goal we all share, and this is a goal we will continue to follow. Today's announcement by Minister Holder is an example how we are doing that. We've put job protection in place that will protect New Brunswickers directly impacted by COVID-19. Il est important de protéger les emplois et de soulager la pression que les gens de New Brunswick connaissent. De cette façon, lorsque les gens pourront retourner au travail, il y aura un emploi qui les attend. Getting Working NB up and running, again, is another way that we are supporting New Brunswickers in helping to get the province's economy back on track. I encourage any New Brunswicker, whether you are an employer in need of employees or you are someone looking for a job, to learn more about the services available through Working NB. Nous procédons lentement, mais le fait reste que le Nouveau-Brunswick est en train de prendre ses activités. Il reste des questions et des préoccupations au sujet des employés étrangers temporaires. Les employeurs se demandent comment ils pourront trouver des gens pour pourvoir les postes disponibles. The health and safety of New Brunswickers is top of mind, which is why we have put in place restrictions on temporary foreign workers entering the province. I was pleased to learn about the student funding announcement by the federal government and hope many New Brunswick students will answer the call and step up to the plate to help our agriculture and agri-food sectors, all the while gaining valuable skills and experiences. Food production is an essential sector in New Brunswick, and our government is committed to working with the industry to provide a stable food supply to all New Brunswickers. On Monday, we will be launching a virtual job matching platform to connect New Brunswickers with available positions that in the past have been filled by temporary foreign workers. It is anticipated there will be up to 600 jobs in sectors such as agriculture and aquaculture. we are taking steps to fill vacancies in these sectors. For example, we are exploring opportunities to fill vacant positions by recruiting from the 30,000 post-secondary students, 7,000 grade 12 students about to graduate, and tens of thousands unemployed people who have been displaced by COVID-19. We're looking for ways to employ temporary foreign workers who are already in the province and have also been affected by this pandemic. We are also exploring the possibility of redeploying or calling back unemployed casual or seasonal workers from government departments to work in the fishery and agricultural sectors. Anyone interested in this opportunity should visit the new website, www.gnb.ca/workingnb. Nous avons besoin de gens de Nouveau-Brunswick dans ces postes. En mettant la main à la pâte, vous aiderez votre communauté et l'économie de notre province. Il est important de continuer à travailler ensemble pour aider notre province à traverser cette période difficile. The emergency order has been renewed for another 2 weeks. This is something we will continue to do for as long as the order is needed to protect the health and safety of New Brunswickers. As part of today's renewal, a few changes were made. All licenses, registrations, certificates, and permits issued under New Brunswick laws that were valid as of March 16th, previously extended to May 31st, have now been extended to June 30th. Remember, many renewals can be done online through the Service New Brunswick website. Un nouveau paragraphe a été ajouté à l'ordonnance d'urgence afin de permettre aux conseils municipaux et à leurs communautés de tenir davantage de réunions virtuelles. La loi sur la gouvernance locale impose habituellement des limites sur la participation virtuelle des conseillers et exige une participation en personne. This change will allow municipal council and council committee members to follow the directives of public health while continuing to serve their communities. Our government will continue to take the actions necessary to protect our province, and we will make changes as needed as the situation continues to unfold. Currently, we plan for schools to resume in September. However, as long as we're operating in the colored bands in the recovery plan, up to the green phase, the classroom setting will be different from the one we know. C'est là l'étape de le rétablissement dans lequel nous nous trouverons à ce moment-là. Les salles de classe devront s'adapter à ces réalités. Cela pourra comprendre l'apprentissage en ligne et de groupes plus petits. The Department of Education and Early Childhood Development is working on plans for the coming school year in conjunction with the recovery plan and advice from public health to help respect the physical distancing and ensure health and safety precautions will be met. Our government will continue to plan for any contingency we may face in the coming days. But as always, we cannot do this alone. Nous avons besoin de l'aide de chaque personne au Nouveau-Brunswick pour garder notre province en santé et en sécurité. Vous devrez continuer à suivre l'ordonnance d'urgence et les directives de la santé publique. C'est comme ça que nous allons continuer à rester en sécurité et en santé, tout en limitant la propagation de la COVID-19. I am proud of how so many of you have stepped up and have done what has been needed to get us to this point. It has not always been easy. You have proven over and over again how truly resilient and caring New Brunswickers are. You have worked together, supported one another, all the while staying apart. Together, we will face any challenges that come in the days ahead. Together, we will get through this stronger and better for the many future generations to come. Thank you. Merci.
Merci à toutes et à tous. Thank you all. We'll now proceed with questions from the media. You have the right to pose your question in the language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder aux questions des journalistes. Vous avez toujours le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. Elizabeth Fraser, CBC.
Hi there, my question is for the Premier. After the concerns expressed by industry since your ban on temporary workers coming into New Brunswick, are you considering exemptions? And if so, what are they?
At this point, what we are looking at are the 600 vacancies that we're aware of, and we're working with each business owner in relation to their specific needs. And certainly they're being contacted by Department of Post-Secondary Training, Education, Training, and Labor, and the minister is leading that file. And the concept here is we first understand what the needs are, and then we decide if we're able to fill them within the many people that are currently available within the province, all the while ensuring that the primary goal is to maintain health and safety of the workers and of our citizens, and to ensure that the business owner can get the capabilities that are needed to keep moving their business forward.
Thank you, Premier. Ms. Fraser, do you have a follow-up today?
Yes. My question is, again, for the Premier or Dr. Russell. If elementary and other schools can't reopen for safety reasons, why should parents be confident that daycares will be safe places for them or their children? Will the bubble approach to protection be out the window by the time daycares open?
Well, the issue around daycares is that we can't really safely open up the economy if people don't have childcare. So in terms of working towards recovery, that has to be part of the initial phase. My public health team at the Office of the Chief Medical Officer of Health has been working with early childhood and education around how to do that safely. So they are meeting regularly and partnering with each other to, again, make sure that how they approach this is as safe as possible.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Vicki Hogarth, Charlotte County TV.
Thank you, Bruce. My question is either for Minister Holder or its Premier. Many tourist destinations have seasonal employees who have been on seasonal employment insurance for the off-season, and we're expecting to go back to work next month, but will either not be rehired this year or will have drastically reduced hours. Will they be able to extend their EI benefits or receive additional support now that their current benefits are running out?
Well, first of all, unemployment insurance is a federal issue. So in terms of expanding unemployment benefits, I mean, that's a question directed to the federal government. But what I would say to anybody, whether it's an employee or an employer, they should reach out to our working New Brunswick offices right away. That's exactly why we've reopened them, as I've announced today. There are people available to handle those questions and concerns, and the flexibility and the nimbleness that we put in place last fall that I talked about earlier is exactly, as I said, for moments like this. We had too many programs over the years, quite frankly, that were way too criteria-based. We were trying to fit employers, employees, and communities into a specific program that just wasn't working. With that flexibility, we can tailor what we need around the situation in a respective community with a respective industry and find out exactly what employees and employers need. So whether it's an employee or an employer, they should reach out to our offices and find out what kind of programming we can put in place to help them.
Thank you, Minister. Do you have a follow-up today, Ms. Hogarth?
I do. Thank you, Bruce. When can we expect to see a detailed operational plan for retail stores such as clothing boutiques and shoe stores to reopen safely, but so they can go back to business sooner rather than later?
So as I mentioned earlier, the Department of Health has meetings set up with the Chamber of Commerce and Chamber of Commerces from different municipalities. So there will be quite a collaborative effort to cross T's and dot I's in terms of providing guidance, not necessarily to individual businesses, but an overall approach for all businesses to be able to open safely with public health advice in a broad, generalized way that then businesses can tailor to their own organizations. But that collaborative work is happening right now, and the first meeting is tonight with those partners. We we need to get it right. So again, this is not something we want to rush. We want all the businesses that have a stake in being able to open safely and move forward with living with COVID-19. What does that mean for each organization and business? And again, how can we help facilitate moving towards opening safely? And again, taking our time to get it right is really, really important and very critical to our success moving forward.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Ms. Hogarth. Michel Corriveau, Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. C'est une question pour le Premier ministre, M. Higgs. Alors, j'aimerais savoir, M. Higgs, vous avez l'opposition officielle qui demande un retour à l'Assemblée législative avec des moyens pour prévenir, pour respecter les normes de la santé publique. Est-ce que ça vous semble une chose nécessaire à ce moment-ci?
So in relation to returning to the legislature, I think that was the question, and I know we proposed that as part of the All-Cabinet Committee. We asked LAC to give us some rules and regulations around how we might return to the ledge, how we might do it in a safe manner while currently following all of the concerns around public health. We spoke of that again, just recently, and that was an item, I guess, of discussion today with the House leaders from all parties. We're expecting a report back from LAC, and then we'll go from there, and to ensure that we follow the legislative process as it makes sense. I think of my federal colleagues, that are doing a lot of activities in the House of Parliament online, and we may be able to resume the ledge online. And so I don't know what the best practices are. I guess I continue to be encouraged by, the discussions we have, meeting every week regularly and a couple times a week, and dealing with issues in this pandemic in a way that is continuing to see that our citizens are safe and see that our progress can resume its new normal as quickly as possible, and that we can, just see our province rebound and get back on track.
Thank you, Premier. Monsieur Corriveau, as-tu suivi cet après-midi?
Oui, M. McFarlane, merci. J'aimerais savoir, Monsieur le Premier ministre, pour vous toujours la question. Cette fois, c'est le Parti vert qui demande la création d'un comité permanent des députés de l'Assemblée législative, essentiellement sur COVID-19. Donc, un comité permanent des députés de l'Assemblée législative sur COVID-19. Est-ce que c'est une idée à laquelle vous pourriez être d'accord?
Well, I guess I'm open to any new ideas. It isn't something that has received much discussion at this point, to my knowledge. But it's certainly, we have very open discussions when we meet as a committee, and certainly understanding what the nuances and benefits of a standing committee might achieve. I'd be always willing to understand and move forward if it makes sense.
Thank you, Premier. Merci, Monsieur Corriveau. Laura Brown, CTV.
Hi there. Either for the Premier or Dr. Russell. Wondering, within 2 months, we've totally seen a different healthcare system. We've seen people be able to access virtual appointments with their doctors quicker. We've seen ERs clear out. But there is some concern out there about that, about people putting their health care or their own health on hold during this pandemic. Are you concerned about that? And are you also concerned about a backlog after all of this, or at least after hospitals reopen in a sense?
Hi, Laura. Very, very good question. All of these things were taken into consideration. It's quite remarkable what work has been achieved in terms of what we learned from that exercise of moving ALC patients out of hospitals, reducing the emergency room visits, reducing the elective surgeries in terms of what the capacity was for having a surge of COVID-19 patients. So we learned so much information from doing that there are certain pieces of that obviously we have to keep in mind as we move forward. So what level of services can we safely provide on an ongoing basis when we don't have a high number of cases? And then how do we transition to being able to accept COVID-19 patients if the numbers were to ramp up again? So again, an amazing exercise of collaboration between the RHAs and the Department of Health and all of our partners to learn together what it looks like when you have to make space for COVID-19 patients, what that capacity is as a province. And so now we know. So we have that baseline information, and we can use that learning to be able to move forward, again, in the safest way possible, in terms of how many surgeries we can safely do, what types of services can we offer safely. Emergency rooms have always remained open. I do remember hearing and seeing things on social media around how empty they were, not necessarily on purpose or design, but certainly there was a fear factor in terms of people not wanting to be at the hospital. But again, it certainly tapped into what resources we have available, how to utilize them in the most effective and safe way as we move forward and transition from different phases as we respond to COVID-19.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Brown, do you have a follow-up today?
Yes, Minister Holder or Premier, you may have already mentioned this, but David Kuhn had mentioned earlier today about a potential wage subsidy to encourage New Brunswickers into some of the jobs that temporary foreign workers would have been doing. Wondering if you would consider that. David Kuhn had mentioned maybe $4 an hour.
I think we've discussed, what are the opportunities to enhance the food security potential in our province, and one of those currently is certainly the economic viability of our farms, the competition that exists from around in other provinces, and how farmlands and farmers are addressed, so that we see that we are competitive in that regard. Looking at wage subsidies, looking at this issue around temporary foreign workers and what the federal government have recently offered is for students is something focusing on the sector and to ensuring the labor force is needed. I think it's very appropriate. I think looking at a long-term viability is a goal. There's an issue right now in terms of ensuring that farmers can meet their requirements to continue on this season, and we'll work on that as a result of changes to the temporary foreign workers policy. We'll deal with that to ensure they can. But I think looking at the wage subsidy package is something, that we've said as part of food security, we need to focus. I've seen some very good models now of kind of where we are as a province, how we are compared to other provinces, where our strengths and weaknesses can be. But I think we've been disconnected in the past, and that has a result of, I think, us not being able to get a 5 or 10 or 15-year plan together. So I want to look at business cases that ensure that we can say, okay, here's a farming opportunity that maybe it has to be this so big in order to be economically viable, but it's one that we can support from one government to the next so that it has a long-term future. And when young families invest in farming as a career, they know the policy is not going to keep changing when a new government shows up. So it's more than just thinking today through a COVID crisis. It's about thinking tomorrow for a longevity of our food security.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Matthew Roy-Comeau de l'Acadie Nouvelle.
Bonjour, ma question pour le Premier ministre Higgs. En lien avec la question d'un potentiel retour de l'Assemblée législative de façon virtuelle ou autre, j'aimerais savoir si vous pensez que le comité spécial du cabinet avec les chefs des partis d'opposition devrait continuer son travail même si l'Assemblée revenait, et puis comment ça pourrait se passer, là, sachant que quand on fait partie du comité spécial du cabinet, il y a certaines choses qu'on doit garder secret ou dont on ne peut pas parler.
Well, it certainly, begs the question. I think that our success to date through this pandemic has been directly related to the cooperation and harmony that we've seen through all political leaders, through the 4 political parties, focused on a pandemic and a health crisis that was a significant, serious in nature to our very livelihood, but to our citizens. I think to say that we can have a cabinet committee in which, you know, all items are brought on the table. We're sharing the details, and then we have very open and frank discussions. But those are discussions with cabinet confidentiality. So then how that works when you open up the legislative assembly and do you question people back and forth based on what you discussed in cabinet, it adds a complexity to it, which we need to think about how that best works. I guess my comment is we have to respect the legislative process. We have to decide how that best works in this crisis. We also have to understand what the challenges are today and how they're different from yesterday. We've never had anything like this in New Brunswick. We've handled it to date because of us all working together, I would say in a very effective way. But it hasn't been any singular effort. It's been an effort of many. And it's been an effort that I would suggest with my 4 colleagues and with my caucus and with their caucus and with all of the many civil servants and people in the province have played such a key role and taken an ownership for us to be successful. So how does that drive forward? If we can have that kind of success in the worst of times, imagine the success we can have if we have a focus going forward, a collective focus on delivering food security, on delivering a cleaner environment, on providing well-paying jobs that people want to stay and work and live here in New Brunswick, on setting an example for other provinces to follow, not only in Canada, but other provinces or other countries to follow, and changing the tune that we've had for so long, that New Brunswick is in, you know, is always having a struggle in one way or another. You know, I don't accept that. I don't accept that we're second best. I accept that we can be first place. And I've seen in this last 2 months the very potential for us to be there. And I, for one, and I know my caucus feels the same way, we are not going to resort back to the political days of the past. We need to move the province forward in a collective vision, a vision that is built for the future generations, not for the current day. So I don't want to lose that. And however we start up the legislature or however this cabinet committee works, I think the people of New Brunswick have seen it work very effectively, and I don't think they want to lose it either.
Thank you, Premier. Monsieur Roy, comment as-tu suivi cet après-midi?
Oui, merci. Thank you, Premier. Ma question est pour Dr. Russell cette fois-ci. On a vu durant les derniers jours que le nombre de tests effectués quotidiennement était en dessous là, de l'objectif de 300 tests par jour. Aujourd'hui, c'est au-dessus, c'est au-dessus même de 400. Avez-vous peur qu'on passe à nouveau en dessous de la barre des 300 tests par jour? Et quelle serait la prochaine étape pour assurer un nombre de tests suffisant, sachant là, que le nombre de symptômes qui peuvent justifier un test est déjà au-delà d'une dizaine, je pense.
Oui, c'est quelque chose qu'on discute au niveau national et aussi sur la province. Alors, ce soir, on a une réunion avec les gens qui travaillent pour le bureau du médecin hygiéniste en chef et santé publique aussi ensemble pour déterminer qu'est-ce qu'on va faire pour les prochaines étapes pour notre stratégie. Parce que c'est très, très, très important de garder les nombres en haut d'un tel numéro parce que sinon, ça ne nous donnera pas l'information qu'on a besoin pour donner des bonnes recommandations pour les prochaines étapes. Alors, pour le restant du temps de cette pandémie, on a toujours besoin d'avoir des nombres de tests en haut, un tel nombre pour le restant de cette pandémie. Alors, c'est quelque chose qu'on va toujours revisiter, toujours améliorer, toujours changer, au fur et à mesure qu'on a des différentes choses à discuter, plus d'informations et ça va être déterminé aussi à quelle étape qu'on est dans la pandémie.
Merci, docteur. Merci, Monsieur Roy. Comment? Silas Brown, Global.
Hi, Premier. We've now seen 2 opposition parties come out questioning the decision to completely ban temporary foreign workers, and the Liberals have said that there wasn't enough information provided on earlier in the week when this decision was made, and they're now questioning the decision. And today, Green Party leader David Coon said that the decision seemed rushed, like it was coming out of nowhere, that suddenly the province realized that there were a number of workers that were due to come into the province. What's your response to that?
We're in a health pandemic, and the decision being rushed was absolutely a fair comment in the sense that we had 175 people that were pending to arrive within a week from a foreign country at a time when our international borders have been closed, our provincial borders have been closed. And they're going to work in a very tight-knit area in the processing business. We've seen processing businesses in the out west, in the case of the proximity and where they've been shut down because of the COVID virus. We've seen a situation in other countries, most recently in Singapore, where introduction of temporary foreign workers created another outbreak of the pandemic. So while we can stop and we can think about it, and say, "Wow, I wish we'd done something there." Or we can react and we'll find a way to mitigate the issues on our businesses around the province, which we can, because we recognize that not only can we minimize or eliminate this particular risk, we can find a way through it in working with our businesses to make it happen. So when you have a solution on both ends where you can minimize the risk and you can mitigate the impact by providing the necessary support and labor force with the companies, it's kind of like, why wouldn't we protect health as number one? And it's certainly no secret that that has been our primary focus collectively. And I appreciate it's tough. It's tough when, we start to get different views in the public, and it's not all going to be rosy. I know that. I mean, that's the nature of the business we're in. So for me, it's a decision based on the best information available, but in certainly minimizing any risk. And in the health area, that's what this COVID Cabinet Committee was all about, minimizing risk to the health and welfare of our citizens. And I would say to date, it's been very effective in doing that. But as I said earlier, it certainly was no singular effort on anyone's part.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, do you have a follow-up today?
Yeah, both Mr. Kuhn and Mr. Vickers have suggested that it is time to bring the legislature back. I understand that that is being worked on, but both have kind of said that the necessary secrecy of the Cabinet Committee is almost getting in the way at some points. Kuhn called it, said that the Cabinet Committee is no longer sufficient at this point. What are your feelings on how the Cabinet Committee is operating right now? And are you feeling that the political consensus that we have seemed to have had historically between all four parties is starting to kind of erode as we move into the next phase of pandemic response here? Well,
my biggest concern is I think the results speak for themselves. So it depends on where we're focused. When I look at the results, and when people around us in throughout New-Brunswick look at the results, I don't think there's any question that the collaboration that's existed through this Cabinet Committee have yielded the results, and the people that we've seen working in the system have benefited by the fact that we haven't been firing political barbs, at each other or in the public or any sort of way. They've been just allowed to do their jobs and to do whatever's necessary to protect citizens. And I've seen exemplary work from our civil servants in that regard. I understand the political pressure. I understand the political pressure that David Kuhn would be feeling with his colleagues, that Kevin Vickers would be feeling with his colleagues, and Chris Austin as well. And unfortunately, that's the reality of the system that we have. It's, you can say it's served us well over the many years. It has caused us to be non-strategic in the way we plan the future and we get on a roadmap. It's caused us to be very volatile in our abilities to actually see something through, because so many of the focuses have been based on a short-term duration. So, I guess I can say to the citizens, and I can say to my colleagues and the other parties, it's been a tremendous opportunity that has been an example that has been seen across this entire country. It's been an example that has allowed us to achieve benefits, working closely together with public health that are being looked at across this country. So if other items that we want to have the continued capability and success are being considered as as not as important as trying to get back into the political norm, that's disappointing.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Adam Harris.
Thanks, Bruce. And a question for the Premier. On temporary foreign workers, what would you need to see to create an exemption and allow a business to receive a temporary foreign worker?
So I think, first of all, it is to understand that can we fill the needs of that particular business? Do we have the skill set? Do we have the ability to meet those requirements? Because obviously, the least risk is using the people that we have in the province right now. It provides the experiential learning that I've read something about recently that I always thought was very appropriate when you actually was working in a new portfolio or a new opportunity. It gave you a lot of potential, I think, to see what other sectors look like and gave you a broader depth to see where you wanted to go. I think if we look at each company, which is what we're doing, out of the 600 that have been requested right now, we're going through every one, and we know 175 are in the processing sector. And we'll decide, can we fill that? We'll work with that owner, can we fill that? Is there a reason we can't? And if there isn't a reason that we can, or there is rather a reason that we cannot fill it, then we'll look at how do we fill it with a temporary foreign worker. But first and foremost, how do we do it in a way that minimizes any risk that we would take on the health concerns? The different roles have different risk profiles, and I think it's important to recognize that. And I'm not going to be naive to say that's not real, but we would work, with public health, we'll work with the right guidelines are in place. But, the safest situation is for us to use our own people and our own people to be part of the solution.
Thank you, Premier. Mr. Harris, do you have a follow-up this afternoon?
Yes, please. Also for the Premier. Premier, you announced the province will launch on Monday a virtual job matching website to link the 600 jobs that were to be filled by temporary foreign workers with those unemployed New Brunswickers and students. How will this be any different from the Federal Job Bank and NBJobs.ca, which already exists and currently today show seafood plant and agriculture jobs available?
Thanks for the question, Adam. Adam, I think one of the things that we need to consider here is that, we have a real opportunity in New Brunswick to really change the way that we do business across the board. And when we look at the agriculture industry or we look at the seafood industry and the processing industries, then I think we have an opportunity to sit back and say, how do we take these industries to the next level? And how do we actually create an environment where we have workers in place all season long, because we have a value-added component to some of this, that we have workers in one plant taking an opportunity in some other value-added component of that plant, so that we have workers coming here that are staying here permanently. There's been a lot of talk over the last number of days about temporary foreign workers. What we'd like to see is to revolutionize this industry through the virtual opportunities that we're talking about here in the next few days, but also have a real serious conversation in this province about how we change these industries once and for all. Do we spend money retooling businesses as opposed to the way that we've done things in the past and just throwing good money at bad? Let's have a real serious conversation about how we actually have some value-added components. I mean, one example that I heard over the last couple of days is maybe we look at retooling businesses so that some fish plants might do something value-added on the blueberry side of the equation on the same property or an adjacent property with the same workers, so that we have more all-round opportunities and not just seasonal opportunities. And then, this government is just as committed as ever before to population growth and attracting and retaining new Canadians. If we create a revolutionized seafood and agriculture industry in this province with wages that make sense and with year-round opportunities, we can get people from all over the world coming here and living in New Brunswick, buying homes and contributing to the communities in New Brunswick. That's where we're going. This virtual opportunity that we're talking about in the next few days is just the start of how I think that our best days are still yet to come. But the Premier has talked many times, and we as a caucus support him on this, that this is about taking the opportunities in front of us, taking these challenges that we've been placed with and turning them into real opportunities to really change our economy here in New Brunswick once and for all. And this, if there's ever been a time to do it, now is it.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Hears. Andrew Watt, Telegraph-Journal.
Yeah, hi. My question's for the Premier. Premier, yesterday, well, first of all, David Coon wants an exemption for farmers. It doesn't sound like you're going to grant that. But secondly, yesterday you said that if it took 3 workers from New Brunswick to replace 1 temporary foreign worker, as some business owners have suggested, that we have enough employees to do that, or enough unemployed people to do that. But given that you'd have to pay 3 instead of 1, wouldn't that kill the business's profit margins?
Well, right now, I think what we're looking at is fulfilling the requirements to ensure that the businesses, the farmers, the processing plants continue their operation. And so in the agricultural sector, what we're hearing more and more, and I guess as a result of the federal announcement yesterday and looking at putting money towards having students work on farms, and that would be, a designated way for them to earn that money, but that would be the opportunity for them. I guess federally it's believed as well that there's certainly people would be able to work on farms. Does that mean that they can do every job? Maybe not. But I think that is there reality to the 3-to-1 requirement? We'd have to look at each part of the job on the farm to say, is that the situation? I guess it says a lot more to me if a farmer's saying that it takes 3 New Brunswick citizens to make up 1 foreign worker. That says a lot. It's discouraging to think that way, that our productivity would not be in a comparable, or at least be able to be comparable. I think there's a bigger question there in that, and that's what we should understand. Because if we're going to lead other provinces, if we're going to lead our nation in recovery, it requires a different kind of view on our capability. And sometimes we think it can't happen here in New Brunswick. And I beg to differ. I think not only can it happen, it will happen. But we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. How many times have we heard that cliche? So for me, it's about really taking this opportunity in a crisis where innovation is often key. Let's make it happen.
Thank you, Premier. Mr. Watt, do you have a quick follow-up?
I do. To Minister Holder, the job protections legislation that you've said is now in effect. I noticed that you said that this is emergency leave, but it's also unpaid leave. Doesn't that make it tough for people who have to choose to be off to, say, help somebody with COVID if they're not getting a paycheck at the same time?
No, actually, Andrew, I think there's lots of programming in place. We had the $900 benefit in place for bridging until the federal programming came up and running with the CERB and with the EI benefits. So there is certainly programming in place both provincially and federally for those workers. I mean, if those benefits weren't in place, then I would say then yes, there could be an argument for that, but those benefits are in place. And I would also say that the number one goal here is to make sure that workers have a job to go back to, and that's what's been driving this.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Wall. Callum Smith, Global.
Thanks, Bruce. Premier, you mentioned working with business owners to figure out if positions can be filled locally, and you just touched on that a bit, saying health was priority. But do you see in the near future extensions could be provided for agriculture or aquaculture, and would you consider reversing this decision after hearing the criticism from these sectors?
Our pandemic is not over. The basis for making this decision was to minimize the risk, the health risk. And so while I know that in a case of what we have for current results, and I mentioned it in my address this morning, that we may think we're in the clear. Well, we are not in the clear. So the reason the decision was made in the first place was to protect our citizens from any additional risk on the health side. And can we mitigate that by utilizing our own people within our province in every area, in every sector? That's the reason for the decision. So let's not lose sight of that. That reason has not changed. So am I going to reverse it all of a sudden because there isn't any health risk? Well, when public health tells me we no longer have a health risk in New Brunswick and we no longer need to follow any rules of public health, well then we're back in business as normal. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. And as a result, we will continue with mitigating whatever risks we can. And that includes monitoring our borders even more closely, understanding where people are coming into and out of our province, because our number one goal is ensuring the health of each and every citizen of this province.
Thank you, Premier. Callum, do you have a quick follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Premier. My follow-up is for Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell, I know Singapore was mentioned yesterday and today as a point of concern with TFWs. What are the specific concerns about TFWs if the quarantine orders are strictly followed upon arrival and obviously following health protocols throughout a possible stay?
Well, again, from a public health perspective, right now, the risk for New Brunswickers in terms of having an increased number of COVID-19 cases is from imported cases from outside the province, whether it's from another jurisdiction in Canada, like Quebec, New Brunswick, Ontario, and also from Maine in the U.S. So we have borders on all sides of us, I think with the exception of PEI, because their numbers are really good. In terms of the risk, so outside of the country, outside of New Brunswick, that is where the risk remains and will continue to remain until the numbers go down. So from a public health perspective, I'm speaking to the risk of imported cases from anywhere outside this province and again, trying to reduce that risk and minimize that risk while balancing it with economic needs, with social determinants of health, with ethics and human rights. These are all things that we take into account when we make these decisions. They're not made in a vacuum.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. Smith. David Coach, Times and Transcript.
Yes, hi. The question is for the Premier. You've already addressed this issue of, 3 to 1 as far as the ratio goes for temporary foreign workers to, potentially to workers from New Brunswick. But I just wanted to ask you about another dimension to this because I've been speaking to farmers today in southeast New Brunswick who think it's really unrealistic to mobilize New Brunswickers for this kind of work, saying that, folks from Jamaica, Mexico, et cetera, are very experienced with this agricultural work. They're very fit and they work in this domain throughout the winter in their home communities. And one farmer said it would take up to 48 student workers, he thinks, to replace just 4 workers from Mexico because they're so highly efficient and willing to work hours that Canadians simply find exhausting. And the aspect of this that he suggests might actually backfire in terms of measures to control the pandemic was that with that many people on the farm, he said, they don't have facilities to provide them with lunch areas, for example. They'd have to bring in more porta potties, which would require a whole different sanitization protocol. So he's suggesting that this would actually make it riskier in terms of the spread of COVID-19 with so many people on these facilities. Your response to that?
So did I hear that correctly, that you said 48 to replace 4?
He said up to 48 to replace, he said actually 29 to 48.
Wow, that's quite something. I guess that what I would suggest is that I know that the department folks would meet with this individual and go through that scenario and understand in detail that situation, because I think that's what it would take. And I'm not suggesting this is easy. I've never said that this is easy. None of this COVID experience has been easy. I mean, we've got companies shut down all over the province and, economy in the tank and record unemployment. So none of this is easy, but we're not giving up and we're not finding new ways to start up and new ways to do our business. So while that is the key focus, that'll continue as long as we have a public health requirement as we do today. So I would guess in this case, that farmer should reach out to us and we will meet. I'm sure the minister will meet with him or have colleagues meet with him and go through his particular situation and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Premier. David, do you have a quick follow-up?
Thanks. Yeah, really quickly, just to clarify, you were speaking earlier of news that federal money to provide an incentive to work on farms. Is that correct?
Well, it's a program that they put qualifiers around student employment, basically saying that, yes, it was I think up to $1,200, $1,250 or something like that, in order to have students work in the agricultural area. So I think it was recognized federally that there was an opportunity. It was recognized federally that there was a need to help farmers, to help people in the food industry because of the concerns of food shortages. And so it is really, I guess, a testament to say, how can we work together here with what we have for resources in our province, in our country, to help farmers to meet the objectives? And we'll do that. We'll work with them to meet their objectives because, look, we need them.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Coach. Colin McPhail, CBC.
Hi there. This is a question for the Premier. Slightly more spring-like weather has brought more people outdoors recently, besides the daily record of no new COVID cases. Do you have other ways of measuring whether New Brunswickers are sticking within the recovery stage guidelines and including the bubbles as well?
It will continue to be, as throughout this entire process, an honor system. I mean, we do have a compliance requirement. We do have specifications as dictated by public health, and we do have officers out looking for non-compliance situations. And there will be fines if that is the case. But let's be realistic in terms of province-wide. We are at this point because throughout the province, people have been part of the solution, and they've recognized the importance of social distancing and working within the confines of public health. So for me, it would be saying, I expect that'll continue because we don't want an outbreak. And Dr. Russell may want to speak about this because our path to the future is continuing with our focus.
So at the national level, we actually receive data on people's movement. So, and that happens on a weekly basis. So it's based on cell phone data, et cetera. And so we can track the extensiveness of people's movement and whether it changes from being less active to more active. And the latest results from that information has been that for the last couple of weeks, there hasn't really been an increase. But again, we watch that every week, and it's provided at the national level, and it's broken down by province, and it can even tell you which regions have more movement than others in North America.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Premier. Mr. McPhail, a quick follow-up.
Thanks, Bruce. Just quickly here again for Dr. Russell. We've learned that restaurants in cities like Fredericton are considering expanding the use of sidewalks to help kickstart the restaurant industry. Can you share your thoughts from a public health perspective on the proposed wider use of sidewalk seating for restaurants?
Well, again, there will be a general approach to all businesses in the different phases, and the ones that have more risk in terms of close proximity and not being as amenable to social distancing will be coming in the later phases, and the ones that are amenable to social distance, again, we will have a broad approach to these businesses and making sure that the general principles that can apply to all businesses to protect their staff, to protect the patrons, will involve the social distancing aspect. But again, we have a meeting tonight with the Chambers of Commerce around this piece of work, and that will be ongoing.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. McPhail. That concludes today's update. Thank you very much. Cela conclut la séance d'aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup.